This is unprecedented.
Worst floods in the history.
One of the strongest storms ever.
When disaster strikes, every second counts. Every moment spent deciding how to respond instead of jumping into action impacts how many lives are saved, and it can determine the entire community's long-term recovery.
It's about recognizing that we can no longer afford to treat a crisis as a surprise.
Because it's really no longer a question of if, but when. So government leaders at every level need to do the ongoing and difficult work in advance of a crisis. And that means building housing capacity now. Getting families back into stable, safe housing saves lives, jumpstarts economic recovery, and accelerates community rebuilding. When crisis hits, the clock starts ticking. Governments have to provide immediate food, shelter, and other emergency relief, all while assessing the level of damage. Then they have to get bids to repair or rebuild housing, secure stable funding, and monitor progress closely. Without proper preparation and planning, this process can take years. We cannot allow stronger, more frequent disasters to make long, slow recoveries the new normal. So how can countries do this? By putting bigger, faster, better housing responses in place well before the crisis hits. For decades, the World Bank has helped countries around the world recover from disasters. Learning from this extensive experience, the GFDRR's team working on resilient housing pursues a twin strategy: build better housing before disasters occur, and make sure governments can respond faster after disasters occur as well, by aligning incentives, financing, and loan options with private sector investment. The need for these services is only increasing. Take Acapulco, Mexico, which endured a Category 5 hurricane in October 2023.
Acapulco took a direct hit.
Forecasters called a nightmare scenario.
A catastrophic storm.
Confieso que emocionalmente también es fuerte. Me parece que estos son retos de la vida.
City leaders are confronting this new normal, and specifically, what it means for the city's housing stock. Acapulco issued new regulations to be able to rebuild better after assessing which buildings weathered the storm and which fell short.
De todo lo que es construido con tabla roca, ya se vio que eso no funciona.
And while recovery has proven to be difficult, the mayor hopes her city can be a lesson for others.
Pero también hay una gran oportunidad de renovarnos, tanto como seres, renovarnos de nuestro ser, pero también renovar la ciudad.
Across the Pacific, there are more lessons to be learned. In September 2018, a devastating earthquake and resulting tsunami in Indonesia took thousands of lives and damaged or destroyed more than 100,000 homes. In rebuild efforts, the government of Indonesia is working with the World Bank to bring the mission of Build Back Better to life, with a commitment to building inclusive, earthquake-resistant, and sustainable infrastructure and permanent residences.
The government has to prepare anything needed to make a fast recovery for the survivor.
The mayor of Palu, Indonesia, hopes leaders around the world can learn from their experience and better prepare for future disasters.
We pray this tragedy will never happen again, not just in Palu, but all around the world. But we have to prepare for it.
At the end of the day, every rebuilt house, or every house that doesn't need to be rebuilt because it was resilient and survived the storm or disaster, represents a family's home. A family that can now continue their life, raise their children, go to work, and make their community stronger. And that's the goal of all of this work, to help families, communities, and countries by no longer treating crisis as a surprise, and instead treat being prepared with better, more resilient housing as the best strategy to provide a safer, healthier future. So work with us, or help fund our work to create housing programs that finally make being prepared well before a disaster strikes the new normal.